Hurricane Katrina shocked the nation, yet New Orleans' vulnerability to flooding had been predicted for decades. So has New York City's. Although hurricanes weaken as they move north, experts say New York has the potential to be hit with a Category 3 hurricane, threatening residents in coastal neighborhoods in all 5 boroughs. Even a nor'easter has the potential to cause significant damage. Storms that hit at high tide would be the worst.
One of the problems with Katrina is the channelization of the Mississippi River has not allowed the replenishment of the marshes, of the flood-borne sediments that replenish the marshes that acted as a buffer for New Orleans. Well, New York City, in several areas, has had marshes that are in trouble for various reasons. Jamaica Bay marshes, and then all the marshes around Manhattan and the Bronx, well over 90% have been destroyed, have been filled in.
Wetlands help clean surface runoff. So if you're in an urbanized environment like this one, and it rains and water is running off of the streets, if that water were to go straight into the waterways, it would have a much more damaging effect on the water quality itself than if it first runs through a wetland.
Certainly the long-term prospects for global climate change would indicate that coastal areas, and particularly low-lying coastal areas, are going to become more vulnerable to flooding. There's always the risk of a hurricane.
As you see in a minute, most of the hurricanes are offshore, and it would take a kind of a curved ball. It would take a hurricane coming up the east coast, drive up over the Gulf Stream, driving a lot of heat energy up the east coast, and then suddenly takes a curve to the left or the west and bashes into New York City.
The potential for storms in New York area is major, and we've been lucky.
One of my colleagues at the University of Rhode Island, using Google Earth again, just looking down on the business district, and they ran a computer model with a Category 3 direct hit on New York City, and this is the kind of flooding that would result. You can see everything filled up with water just for a few hours. Now this is kind of what you might call a worst case. If the hurricane had hit 6 hours earlier or 6 hours later at low tide, surge would still be there, but it would be much lower down, and there probably would not be much flooding.
The last major one was in 1938 in Long Island. We've had some nor'easters since then that have showed what severe storms can do to the infrastructure, the subway system, the transportation network in New York City. And certainly a storm surge resulting from a major hurricane would cause major problems with the transportation network, some of the low-lying coastal areas.
Would it be permanent? Well, you'd get tremendous destruction. People who are killed, that's certainly permanent. Some property damage might be permanent. Some damage to the shoreline. Some reconfigurations of the coast might happen.
And even though the winds with nor'easters may be not as powerful as hurricanes, nor'easters can do more damage, and the reason is that they hang around longer. You're guaranteed to get several high tides, and so you're guaranteed to get flooding events. This is the Hoboken train station, and water is pouring down the steps. Once again, that's not flood water from the rain, that is the ocean. This is what we call storm surge. And now salt water, you know, is very corrosive, but it's also a strong conductor of electricity. So it completely short-circuited the whole subway system.
There are about 18 climate models around the world, Bowman says, and no consensus on whether it will rain more or less in the coming decades, which makes it difficult to predict when and where a city storm could land, or what it could leave behind.
In this business of storm surge prediction, everybody wants to know if their house is going to get washed away. Every mayor, every little community wants to know if Main Street's going to get flooded. And we say the devil's in the details. It gets harder and harder to predict accurately as when you get down to the street level. But that's what everybody wants to know. Should I move my car? Should I move my children?